Welcome to DIY guitar making, and guess what? I just broke a bandsaw blade. It wasn't just this bandsaw blade's time to go, it's because I got careless. What's even funnier about that is if you watch the last video that I did, I was just espousing the merits of keeping the guide bearings just above the height of your workpiece. And I totally did not do that here. And I'll explain why. Not making an excuse for it, just explaining what I did. So I cut out about 20 of these back end top sets here. Yesterday I profiled them on the bandsaw, and that's when I was talking about the merits of setting those guide bearings. And I got all those done just fine, but once I got to the fretboard blanks and was cutting out the tapers for these fretboards, I got careless. So what I did was, ordinarily I mark out with my template, I mark out the taper with I can't find it right here, but it's somewhere, with a gel pen. And gel pens work great on dark woods when they actually work. That's the one problem, big problem I have with gel pens, is they're unreliable. Sometimes they're working great, other times for whatever reason the gel isn't running. Rather than get the gel to run or find another working gel pen, I just figured, screw it, I will mark these with pencil, knowing that the pencil is very difficult to see on the ebony. So then when I was cutting these out, man, I could barely see that pencil line most of the time, and there were definitely some sketchy moments where I lost track of it and was following a grain line in the wood, and then I realized it and nearly undercut my taper there and ruined the fretboard. So I decided, let me just lift the guide bearings way up so that I can let some light in, because the lights are up on the ceiling. So that's the one downside, is when you lower this to just above the height of the material, then it creates a little shadow right where the whole apparatus is. So it's tempting to raise it up, and I raised it way, way up, knew I was playing with fire, and it really didn't take long for that blade to just snap. You can't see that it snapped here, but when we open this up, you can clearly see, man down. Alright, and no sense wasting any time here. Let's go ahead and swap out this blade. Really, the first step is to just unplug this whole thing. There we go. Unplugged. Safe. And let's get this blade out of here. So this is something that's on most bandsaws, and it's for the fence to latch onto. And I can just pop this thing off. Open this up. Often this is an opportunity to clean up some of the innards here. It actually doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to go ahead and, I've definitely seen this worse. I'm going to go ahead and vacuum up some of this stuff in here, and I like to, doesn't really need it now because I've done it in the not too distant past, but I like to clean the wheels because some gunk ends up on those wheels, and then it's less flat and less smooth of a surface there. So it's good to clean that up with a cleaning solution. Let's get rid of this. So you can see some of the gunk on the rubber portion of the wheel here. You see all that kind of brown-ish stuff. That's what I want to clean off. Like I said before, that's actually not all that bad, and I probably could just let that go for now. But for the sake of the video, let's go ahead and clean it up and hey, maybe it will redeem me just a little bit for making the mistake in the first place. So I've got an old toothbrush and a very old bottle of Simple Green. And what we're going to do is just dip the toothbrush in there. And let's get this fretboard out of here so it doesn't get all wet. And it's very easy. You can just take the toothbrush, rest it over here, and spin the wheel. And that looks super clean now. Then to just dry it off, you can take a paper towel. You can still use the toothbrush just to have a handle on it. And put that in there. Alright, so take a look at that. That black rubber is squeaky clean. Of course, we want to do the same thing to the bottom wheel. Alright, now we can put the new blade on. The wheels here are still at full tension. There's a quick release right here. I can just take the tension off like that. That way we can put the blade on there and then put that tension back into place. Alright, now the fun part. It might seem a little bit like overkill, but honestly, wearing gloves and even eye protection when you uncoil these is basically a must, because they coil these things up. These are from Timberwolf, but really any company. It's just the way to store and to ship something like a bandsaw blade is you coil it up. Now it has very sharp teeth and it's basically spring loaded at this point. So it's kind of scary. I mean, it's fine if you wear gloves and eye protection, but if you didn't, I think it would be pretty scary. Take these little, they're like bread ties. Take these off. And they put a lot of bread ties on this thing. Alright, ready for this? And what a lot of people like to do, you just throw it. Voila! It's pretty fun, actually. So here's our blade. It has been released from its coil. Let's go ahead and install it. This is a 1/4 inch blade. I like the 1/4 inch for this bandsaw because it's kind of like the Goldilocks zone there. It's not too small, so it doesn't break frequently. And it's not so large that I can't do curves and things like that. Now I should mention, like I did in the previous video, I have a second bandsaw that is permanently set up with a very large 3/4 inch blade for my resawing and rough mill work and everything like that. This is my smaller bandsaw for doing scroll work and smaller tasks, more delicate tasks. Now to get this on there, I like to lower the top wheel pretty much all the way. It just makes it easier to get this on there, and then we will raise that back up to tension. This is just the clumsy part here. Alright, so now once you've finagled this thing on here, what you want is, you actually don't want the blade perfectly centered as it appears to be right now, but you actually want the teeth to be a little bit closer to center, because if you think about it, that's really the central cutting point, the cutting edge of what you're doing with this, not the center of the width of the entire blade.
So you want those teeth to be not necessarily right on center. That might put the back edge too far off the edge, but I want this pushed back just a little bit. So I'm going to do that. Alright, now I can bring the tension back on and dial it up to, there's a little gauge back here which even has the markings on it for 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, etc. So it's giving you your blade width, and you can just set this little orange mark back here right to the number that you want it. However, what I find, and what a lot of people find, if you talk to other woodworkers and people who use bandsaws for various reasons, is that a lot of times the tension that you actually want is a little bit more than what they have listed here on the graph. I've noticed that both for this little bandsaw that I have and for the bigger one, both of them, I have the tension dialed up just a little bit more than where they have the line, and that seems to be right. I was actually having problems before I figured that out. So let's dial that up. Okay. And you can even give it sort of the press test here that you can see I'm doing over here with my finger. It's a deflection test. There's nothing quantitative I can say about that, except to say that there's a feel. Now, of course, when you don't have that feel, you can just rely on that handy gauge that I mentioned and dial it up a little bit extra. And then lastly, for setting this up, is the tracking, which is this wheel right here. What the tracking does is it tilts the upper wheel until the blade, as it spins, stays centered, right? Because that wheel, it's a very fine balance to keep it so that as the wheel spins, it doesn't slowly drift the blade to one side or the other of the wheel, because if it does do that, that blade will eventually, and actually very quickly, because it spins fast, it will very quickly work its way all the way to one side of the wheel and then pop off and break again. So we don't want that. We want to make sure that this stays centered. There's a little window here so you can watch your tracking, and what I'm going to do is either tighten or loosen this depending on which way the blade moves through this tiny window here. And I'll show you guys in just a second. I'll hold the camera up to the window, but for now let me just get started with this. And sometimes I can hear it rubbing against this bearing, so you can loosen or move that bearing back so it's not messing with your tracking, and then we'll reset these bearings all at the end. So it's moving towards the front, so I need to turn this wheel this way. And now it's moving towards the back. Alright, I want to show you this so you can see what I'm talking about. So here you can see we're towards the front. And I'm spinning the wheel with my hand to see which way it drifts. It appears to actually be holding pretty steady. Okay, and once that's good, I can lock this. So there's usually a lock on the tracker there so that that doesn't vibrate and drift over time. So that's locked down. The tracking looks good. Let's close this up. So now this should be good to go. I am going to first check, though, the guide bearings here. Often when you change a blade, if you really haven't jostled things around or changed things much, then you might not have to adjust these at all, and they'll be fine in the orientation they already were in if that was working for you. But hey, that might be the reason why your blade broke. Maybe they're too wide or spaced out. Either way, it's worth taking a look at. So there's 3 bearings here. You can see the 2 on the side, and then there's also one a little harder to see in the back here. And a good general rule of thumb is you want about 1/32 of an inch, which isn't much, of space between the blade and these bearings. And you want them set just behind the teeth on the smooth part of the blade. You don't want these set so that they will contact the teeth. You want them to contact the smooth part of the blade. And easy to forget, down here, we have the same thing. We have 3 more bearings to check. So you get all those set up, and I think these look pretty good. And then we're good. We're back in action. So why don't we give this thing a little test whirl? Well, there you have it. Problem solved. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye for now. If you learned something here, please give this video a like and subscribe so you can be notified when I release a new DIY guitar making video. And if you want to really learn more, take one of my structured online courses at ericschaferguitars.com or register for a hands-on guitar building workshop here with me in Burnville, Pennsylvania.